All right, welcome to Scrapbook Live. I am Megan Jack. Today is Wednesday, November 8th, and we have a sketch to put together. This is just a layout from the Creative Memories blog, just like all the other ones that we've done. Is that we have been able to, this particular project also had a sketch with it. And I kind of wanted to talk about sketches a little bit more. I've always a little bit focused more on the project, like the actual showing you what the final design looks like from the blog, and then kind of doing a replication with some adjustments. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about it from the sketch standpoint. So the project I've picked today is actually in the fourth quarter sketchbook. I will talk to you, or it's a sketch booklet. I will talk about that too. You can get those from your advisor. Customers of mine, I will be sending those out as a thank you gift. They're going to be going out a little bit later this week or early next week, so you'll get those in the mail probably before Thanksgiving. But I'm going to go ahead and go over here to my overhead camera. But really quick before I do, if you are watching this as a recording later, there is a link below in the description on YouTube that'll take you to my blog that has the handout for today. And if you are watching this live, there should be a link in the post itself that has a link to my blog, which is where I have the handouts. I've copied and pasted the information from the Creative Memories blog. There's also a QR code on that handout that you can follow to go right to the blog if you want to. And there's always that hashtag at the bottom that if you do decide to share your layout in my group, which is Scrapbooking with Megan, you can use that hashtag so we can keep track of all the layouts from today. Though, to be honest, today's are going to be pretty identifiable within the group. So I'm going to switch to my overhead camera and we'll go ahead and get started. So I picked this layout today. It's a really cute one. It was done with the US of Yay collection from, it was on the blog in May of 2023, so May of this year. And there's all parts of this that I love. One of the things that really just drew me in for sure was I love the angles. I love these details of just that cohesive, those arrows just kind of pointing you towards the middle of the layout, which is a really, really fun technique. And I was rather delighted when I saw that it showed up in the fourth quarter sketchbook from Creative Memories. So Creative Memories every quarter puts out a little sketch booklet. It's just a few pages long. These are available to advisors. I use them to send out as thank you gifts to my customers. They were distributed this last weekend at the crop that I held here in Washington. But a great feature about these sketch booklets at least from 2023 is Creative Memories has kind of given us a little bit of a walkthrough. And I'm going to switch back here to the layout that I'm going to be doing today to show you guys. As you can see here, as they're showing us they show three different options. We have a beginner, just a base sketch, some photos, a basic background, a little bit of decorative detail. Then they come up to one more additional level is we're going to intermediate. Now we're going to add in those triangular pieces. We'll add an additional border at the top. And then we come down here to an advanced level. We've got all three of those layers on those triangle pieces. But the great thing about these sketchbooks is they have the measurements in here. And what's really nice is if you look at the pathway, the beginner, intermediate, and advanced, I think it really helps you to see how these components all work together. And what's great about it is you can go with just the beginner. If you're just starting, want a simple layout to put together, the beginner is a perfect place to start. And if you want to work your way up, you can go through intermediate and advanced. Intermediate is also a great spot. It's less paper that's being used. We just use one of the triangles. And they give you the measurements and a little bit of detail there. You can see it's a 4x4 that we're going to cut in half diagonally. So if you don't want to use as much paper, you could just do the intermediate, get that same effect with those that triangle piece, or you can take it up a notch and put those additional layers in there, mix and match your papers a little bit, and you'll be able to get a little bit more here of the final sketch. So this would be a sketch where they're really giving us a lot of detail and direction to really replicate the sketch here, which would be more of what I would say or imitation. There's two approaches, in my opinion, to doing sketches. You can go with inspiration, where the sketch is inspiring you. There's parts of it that you like. Maybe you just love these triangles and you want to put those in your layout, and you can use them in any way. You've got they've given you all the directions, and you can use those anywhere on your layout. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. So the inspiration, where you pick and choose what you like, it's kind of giving you a direction to go. But once you get going, you really just let the photos take over, and you let the photos tell their story. Versus an imitation, where it's more of a scrap lift, where it would be more replicating than being inspired. There's obviously inspiration in when you're doing imitation, but when you're really just mostly thinking, I love this layout, I want to put it together exactly like this, that would be more of the imitation, where you're scrap lifting it, you're following the sketch a little more closely with a majority of the elements. What's great about imitation when using things like the sketches, the blog project, the big sketchbook that we just had as part of the birthday promo, those are my either really late at night or really in the morning go-to items when I'm at a crop and I haven't woken up for the day. I am kind of just creatively blocked a little bit. And so I just need a little bit. I want to keep working on my projects, but I really can't come up with anything. So that's a great place to start with sketches. And it's true even for when you're using them for inspiration. You can flip to that sketchbook and what catches your eye? Is there something particular you catch it? Grab that item out of the sketch and run with it. Sketches, you can use as much of it or as little of it as you want in terms of your inspiration. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I am kind of going to walk you through the beginner, intermediate, and advanced for the sketches here. You can follow along with the blog handout. It's got all of the directions in here. Largely, it's the same thing. They give us all the measurements over on this side. The blog handout has all those measurements, but they're just more in a word and step-by-step direction or format. So there's lots of sentences. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is, well, we have to figure out our photos. And Miss Kitty, this little wonderful creature, loves to sit on my desk. I'm sure you guys all have that too, where your animals, most of maybe just your cats, love to jump up on your table and sit. Now, granted, I have a really nice view out the front window, and I can't blame her for wanting to sit there. But what you can't see in this photo is there is a solid 7-inch windowsill that she could sit in, but she likes to plop her rear end on my table. So this particular one, I was working on Power Hour for October, and she didn't seem to understand that I had a deadline, and her rear end on my space was not letting me get my project done to meet my deadline. So she got booted, but I did take a few pictures first. So I'm going to scrap those. I'm actually using the Scrap Happy collection here. I thought it'd be very apt. She's my scrap cat or something like that. So I need a background. One of the details that we can see here, a base, something to build my layout on. I want to highlight here one of the details that's nice, and it's a feature we see a lot, is where we have the background that's a 12 by 12 page. And then we put a large piece, and you can see up here for sure in this sketch, the dark gray is our background. And then the white is almost like what I call a page mat. The nice effect that it gives you is it gives you the effect of a frame around your layout. And you can really see that here. We have that blue contrasting with that red, the cranberry cardstock that they've used in here. So we're going to mimic that. It's a great technique to do. It does, I think, really make your layouts feel a little bit more cohesive when you add that frame effect. So I have picked out 2 pieces of paper here. I am going to go, instead of using a cardstock, I'm going to use one of the tonal papers out of the Scrap Happy. It's actually out of the foiled part. It has the foiled cameras on the back. I'm going to use it for the dark tonal blue that is here. And then I have one of the tonal pieces out of the designer pack that I'm going to cut down to 11 inches and sit on top. Now, the beginning step, you would probably just work straight from this, and you would cut your piece of paper to 11 by 11. I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut this piece of paper down, measure it over here to 11 by 11. and go ahead and trim. And right there, you can start to see how it just frames out that background really nice. So when I start to put my photos on, you can see how it's just going to come together. My photos are a little bit different in size. I couldn't quite get the 3x4" photos in these upper corners. Mine are more, they're not quite 4x4. They are 4 tall, but about 3 3/4 inches wide. And they're going to sit about like such. So there you can see it's got the start of a pretty good layout going here. The next detail they would say for us to add would be some mats and a border. Now I wanted to use my scissor punch and I got fussy cutting some of the handles. So I made my handles all different colors. And that border would sit along the bottom. And then the next element they have is to come across, actually it would be some mats. So we're going to actually go ahead and I think I am just going to use some white mats. So let me grab some white cardstock and we will go ahead and get that cut. And I did not grab any white cardstock before I got started. So I'll grab some pieces. They tell me here in my sketch and in my directions that I have a 4x6 photo here. So they want me to cut a 6 1/4 by 4 1/4. So I'm going to come out here to 4 1/4. We'll go ahead with 4 1/4. Sometimes I like to make mine just a little bit bigger. I would go more like to 4 3/8. But for the sake of our demo today, I will stick to their measurements. 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. And that white is just going to let those photos pop right off of there. And then these, like I said, they're 4 inches tall. This one's 4 tall. This one is 4 wide. So I will be able to get one. It's 4 inches tall, but I need to come out. It's not quite. I know it is 3 3/4 inches. So I'm going to cut it to 4 inches. So it's going to be 4 1/4 tall by 4 inches wide. Just going to a 1/4 inch wider or 1/4 inch bigger than the dimensions of your photo. That gives you a 1/8 inch border. I'll do one more. I need to cut one more mat, one more smaller. So I'm going to come here to 4 1/4 inches wide. And again, I'll trim that to 4 inches. So it's going to be 4 by 4 1/4. So right here would be kind of the beginner start of a sketch. I have room if I want to add some journaling. I can add a title. I would probably need, since my photos are a little bit wider, I would probably put my title down here where I have a little bit more space and then do my journaling up here. I can come in and use a mat if I want to for my journal box. I might be able to journal right on top of this lighter blue. But all in all, that would kind of be our beginner sketch. They do have a piece of paper behind this border. They show it being 1 1/2 inches, but remember, I've already got a border that I've made, so I need to make sure that whatever I put behind my border here can work with that. And if I do 1 1/2, it should be good. It looks like I can see 1 1/2 inches. I'll have adequate size on either side of my my scissors. Sorry. The blue paper is from the Scrap Happy 2 collection. It's a really cute set. The tonals, there are some some scrapbooking details in it, but the tonal sides of this paper are just some fun colors. So when you're looking at it, I think on the Creative Memories website, if you go and look, you'll be able to take a peek at the actual, the flip through the papers. There's a link on there that'll let you flip through the papers. So here is kind of that beginner sketch. We've got our border element. We put a title here. I could put some journaling up here, put on some additional embellishments, and we'd be good to go. But that's not really why we're here today. We're here today to add some triangles. I love the triangles. That was the part of this sketch that I loved the most. So what I have done is I have picked out 3 different papers, because ultimately I'm going to end up here where there's the 3 pieces. But I want to talk about how we get there. So they tell us that these triangle pieces are actually cut from squares, and then you rotate the squares and cut them diagonally. I think in the directions, the blog directions, they actually have you cut out a 6-inch, 5-inch, and 4-inch square, stack them together, and then cut on the diagonal. I'm actually going to cut each piece separately. I think it's just a little bit easier. If you cut them when they're stacked, you have to basically make sure that you get everything lined up perfectly to cut that diagonal. I think it's actually easier just to go ahead and cut them before you adhere them. So I'm going to start with that 4-inch piece, because that's the piece in the intermediate sketch that we'd be adding. We'd be adding that 4-inch piece. So we come in here. We want to make sure we can see the tip of that triangle. So I can see the tip there, and then we come over here and add the second one. Now, of course, that starts to alter where I can do my journaling. Maybe I'm going to bring my journaling up here, or I'm going to put my title up here now and then do my journaling down here. So it just starts to shift a little bit. Again, part of the thing for me, their sketch, they have the title up in this upper left-hand corner because their photos are a little bit narrower. I could come in and I can cut this photo down, and I may ultimately do that. My photos are a little bit bigger. They're taking up a little bit more real estate. It also wants us to come in with another border detail at the top. I know I'm going to come in with the Shutterbug icons, the shutter icons up here at the top, but I don't want to stick them down now because they are stickers. I need to be able to adjust them. So I'm going to wait. I will add those once I have my layout all set. So what am I going to do next? Well, now it's time to go ahead and add these additional elements. Add those larger squares so I can get that full detail. I'm super excited about that. We're going to add those bits. Now, one thing I want to point out, I mentioned this before, is we could totally move our triangles around. Maybe I want my triangles up here. You can move where they are. I could leave that one still there. Maybe I've got the triangle up here, and that's what I've decided to do. The triangles are still pointing towards the middle. Maybe I come in here and I have a triangle back down here. Maybe I want a third triangle that comes up here to the top. You can just start to play with the positioning of things. The sketch has given us some pieces that we can play with. That's the nice part sometimes about your sketches, doing what I call the dry fit. With the dry fit meaning we're not using any adhesive. I have not adhered anything on this page. It is all just laying here. So I can move things around. I can play with it. A lot of times when I do that, I'm using I have a scrap easel, which is like a magnetic board that I can pin or kind of use the magnets to hold my pieces in place. When I do that, I do it to the point that I like it. I take a quick picture of it and I take it all apart and use the photo on my phone to help me put it back together. But it's just a fun way to kind of play around with it a little bit and see what you like. But I know I am going to stick with at least I'm pretty certain I am going to stick with the original. So now what I'm going to do is take those other pieces. This is my 5-inch piece. It has this lovely yellow. The other side to this is the tape runners. I think I'm going to use the yellow and not the tape runners, largely because we're only showing a small portion of this, and I don't know that we'll really be able to see the tape runner pattern, but we can play around with it. That's the nice thing about these triangles, is regardless of, you can decide which side you want to use. I'm also going to go ahead and cut that 6-inch square on the diagonal. I am just lining it up, the tip to tip on that cutting line of my trimmer. Makes it easy. You could also line it up on that 45-degree line here, but you really don't need to, because you've already got this parts you're marking on your each of the tips. Now we're starting to get more pieces where it starts to get a little bit harder to move things around. I would say at this point, if you're happy with your mats, you could probably go ahead and adhere your photos to your mats as you're starting to play around a little bit. It's not that I'm not happy with them. I may actually cut down my photos just a smidge. I sometimes like a little bit of a chunkier mat. Sometimes that 1/8 of an inch is not quite enough. I don't know that I want a full 1/4 of an inch, but I might want a little bit more. I'm just stacking these. This actually comes down, it sits over the top of that bottom border. So I can see some things, adjustments I'm going to make already. This photo here, because I've used chunkier photos up here, I'm going to narrow this down a little bit. I have a 4x6, but I've got space. I've got space on either side that I can bring this in. So I am going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and trim off. I'm going to take it down to, it looks about like 5 3/4 inch. I have an older personal trimmer, but it's the same concept. The new one is, or the current one is exactly like this one. It's just lighter. So there's 4 by 5 1/2. I am going to take off about 1/8 of an inch to give myself on that 4. So I'm going to go about down to 3 7/8. This piece here, I said my photo was 5 1/2 inches wide. So I'm going to come out here to 5 and let's see, 5 1/2. I need to add 1/4 of an inch, but I'm going to actually add 3/8. It's me being picky. Bring it back just a little bit. And I cut that mat a little too small. There we go. I like that size. So I'm going to go ahead and use some adhesive and put this on the white mat. I've got to get my mats, so I'm just reducing the number of pieces that I have to work with. I'm going to trim these photos down just a little bit. I want a little bit of a wider, a little bit more of that white mat showing, but I don't want to make bigger mats. I want to use the mats that I have. Like I said, sometimes that 1/8 of an inch is just not quite enough mat for me. It needs a little bit more. So those look good. A little bit of adhesive in each corner and put those on. Now instead of 6 pieces, associated with my photos, 3 photos and 3 mats, I have just 3 pieces, and I'll be easier to work with. I can also adhere these pieces. I'm going to grab my 13 by 13 mat so I can center everything when I put these together. I'm just going to line up my triangle on my mat, putting the tip at that 6 inches. I'm putting these all How many of you guys follow Sketches? Do you guys participate in the virtual crop? I know it's coming up. I haven't really participated in the last couple. The timing has just been a little bit rough. I love that they have the measurements on the sketches now. That was such a big thing. Of course, I had been advocating for that for a while. For many of you that might be new to me or haven't, I was providing sketches, measurements for the sketches for most of 2021 and 2022, and then in 2023 they decided, hey, let's add those. So they gave us a nice PDF, a printable PDF. It includes the measurements, which makes those sketches just so much easier. Yeah, Terry's saying she loves Sketches. I do too. Sometimes my brain just doesn't want to think, or by doing the sketches, I can get a basic idea down and then I can kind of run with it. Or I'm taking and mixing and matching the things that I want to use. The other part of Sketches that are really nice is it sometimes forces you to, or doesn't force you, it encourages you to try new things. I like to think of Sketches sometimes as practice, like, you're in a sport or any other kind of endeavor that you need to practice using your tools. And then when you're turned out into the wild and kind of left on your own, you've got a skills set that you've used before, and now you can start really just going to town, having fun, using a skill that you picked up making whatever sketch or whatever blog project. That's kind of the whole point of Scrapbook Live, where we go through the Creative Memories blog and we're learning different techniques, different things to try, and then we can take those with us as we work on our projects. So here we go. So this is starting to take shape. Maybe I'll put this at the top. I really don't like Kitty just like running off the page there. But I really don't like those two next to each other too. But that's upside down. I feel like I chopped her head off, and it was not, I was taking square photos. And so I had my camera all set up just to take square photos. And so, here's where we're sitting right now with this sketch. So I do have some room at the top to be able to put that border detail across. This down here feels a little bit blank. This piece here, the white that I have. So I may have to figure out how to make that a little bit more exciting. I've got an idea. I could either just go across with some stitching, like just some hand, like just using my marker and coming in with a little bit of the stitching detail on there. The other option is to, I wonder if I went in, I could do a small border behind it, a small thin strip to frame it out a little bit. I'm not sure about that. Keep thinking about it. But what I need to do right now is I need to get this 11-inch piece adhered to my background. Like I said, if you're just starting off, you'd probably just take your 11-inch square, mount it to your background, and you'd be good to go. I think that that's a little too much of this pretty paper. Remember, it's got that pretty foiling on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and cut out a 1-inch frame. I've done this technique before. I'm not going to worry about setting binder clips in place, but I am going to do a 1-inch frame. So I know that I need to start my measurement at, I've lined up my paper here at 1 inch. The one is right there. I need to start my blade, which is the white line here, needs to start at 1 inch. And I'm going to bring that blade over to the 11-inch mark. If you want, you can set binder clips. You just move your blade housing to one spot, clip your binder clip there, move it over to 11 where you want to stop, and set your binder clip. I have a whole video on that one. If you've never tried the binder clip technique, it is fun, it's easy. Give it a whirl. I actually used it when I did a make and take this weekend at my retreat. I had the binder or the clips already set on one of my trimmers so that I could show people how to make that frame. And it worked out really, really well. They could see how easy it is once you set those clips to make the frames. All right, so now I have saved all of this lovely paper. And I just need to put this piece in place. I have about a 1/2 inch overlap, so I'm gonna actually put my adhesive on the outer edge of the back side of my 11-inch square. I do want to stay to the outside corner or outside edge as much as possible. You could use the mini adhesive, which is a very thin line. I should show it to you guys because I actually had a couple people that they didn't understand what was going on with the mini tape runner. They thought maybe it was just small. And the mini tape runner is the same size. It's not mini. It's not like tiny in your hands. The difference is, and maybe you can see here, if I can hold those up, see how the mini on here on your right is just a narrow little strip, where on the left with our regular tape runner, it's wider. So the mini is great when you just have that really small, narrow section that you want to put some adhesive on. So I definitely could have used the mini tape runner here, but I've got enough width that I can come in with the regular tape runner. So if you've never used the mini tape runner, I suggest adding it. It's a little bit, it's $6. I think it's in the US, it's like $6, $6.50 or something like that for the refill. All right, so that looks good. I'm going to adhere this border to my white piece there, that 1.25 or 1.5 inch white piece. I'm using the repositionable. That works really well for the piece of the bits. Oh, I do see I need to make one adjustment here. When I did my scissors, I punched bits and then cut out the handles, but I really wanted to add some blue in here, but I wanted to add the dark blue that was behind here. So I knew I was going to cut out a piece and have a bit of extra here. So I am going to use my scissor punch, and I'm just going to punch once. By punching once, I'm going to have 2 sets of handles, and that's all I need. Grab my scissors, slice this out, and I'm going to cut out around my handles and glue and use the repositionable tape runner to adhere these to the silver. I used a platinum shimmer to cut the scissors, so they would kind of have that metallic look to them to mimic a pair of scissors. And I really do like it when, for the scissor border punch, when you take the time to add the handle detail, I think it looks pretty sharp. You know, scissors sharp. Oh, that's a corny dad joke. So adding in the blue just kind of wraps all these colors together. These are the colors of the tonal papers in the pack. So you can see you have some nice blues, peaches, greens, and yellows and purples. I'm not going to adhere this piece in place yet. I've still got to figure out, I want to do something behind it, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I just think it needs something to stand out. Maybe I just need to use some platinum, a piece of platinum shimmer. Let me grab one of those. I think what I'll do for the platinum shimmer, and this is assuming I can find what I want in my mess of stuff here. I will admit I am not completely unpacked from coming home from the crop I was at this weekend. I'm going to use the wave blade to cut the piece from behind this. So I'll show you guys. Normally these blades sit in the back of the housing. I'm terrible, guys. I keep them just in one of those small pods. I just toss them in there. Swap this out. My platinum shimmer. I'm going to go ahead. And I need this. I know this piece here should be 1.5 inches wide. I think that was the size I cut it, 1.5 inches. So I'm going to give myself just a little bit. I'm going to come out to 1 3/4 inches. Yeah, I think it just needed that little bit of a finished edge to it. That's kind of how it goes with sketches. As you're putting things together, you see additional bits that you need to add, or maybe there's bits you're going to leave out. Maybe you don't want to include all the detail at the bottom. Just getting that put in place. It comes and sits along the bottom, and we actually are not able to see the bottom edge of that 11-inch square. I've got a paper that has a kind of an edge to it. So I see Betty's asking about the directions. I do have the ones from my website. Let me just really quick talk about that again. Here's the handout from my website. However, this sketch was also included in the Q4 sketch booklet. So if you work with an advisor, that advisor will be able to get those booklets for you. If you are a customer of mine, those booklets are headed your way probably later this week or next. I include them in my thank you gifts. So they're coming. The only difference in the handout that I put on my website versus this one is it shows you the beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and it has all of the measurements right on the sketches themselves. But the handout here from the website has step-by-step details of how to put this exact layout together. I've meandered around a little bit as we've been putting things together in terms of working through this piece is mounted all the way to the top, this triangle, and this one actually comes all the way to the bottom. So it's going to cover up our border. That's why I kind of needed to figure out what I was doing with that border there. My platinum shimmer is a little bit wider than this piece of white cardstock that I used. So what I'm going to do is since this left or the right side gets covered up by the triangle, I'm going to go ahead and go flush over to the left. And that way I'm flush on that left side, and you'll never know that the white border piece was just a little short. Okay, so there you're starting to see the background piece take place here. The background starts to take shape. Get my photos put on here now, get those situated. So here we go. I'm going to drop this piece down a little bit more. I'm going to put my title up here. My title is going to come in here. And I'll probably just grab a little journal box to go ahead and add some journaling. I really don't have a whole lot to say. I mean, other than she's a complete and utter nuisance when she's in here. But next up, I need to go ahead and put in the piece here. Now, one of the things I want to note is in the sketch, you can see one of the little details they have is that top border does not go edge to edge. You could go edge to edge, but sometimes it's fun to not go edge to edge. Like I said, this is an area where you're maybe going to try something you don't normally do by trimming whatever border element you're going to use at the top to not go edge to edge. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to take off 2 of the shutterbugs on this side and 1 of them on the other side. I want to get rid of the yellow shutter on this end because it's right next to the yellow here. And I don't want that. I want it to stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to round it out. And then I need to take off 2 on this edge. And so that'll get me to this kind of peachy orange color, which works out really well. I like that color in here. It matches my cat's fur a little bit. She's got those ginger undertones. And then this just gets mounted up here at the top. All right. And then I'm going to come in with the probably I got to figure out which stickers I'm going to use. I'm going to use letter stickers in here. I'm pretty certain. I could come in with my die cut letters and just do the word scrap and then just do the word cat in a different font. I kind of like that look. I do that a lot. But all in all, that's where we stand with this particular layout at the moment. I am going to come in. I've got some embellishments that I could choose from. I just noticed that there's a couple of cute little, I could come in here with this little journal box if I wanted to, or there's a little tag right here that I could add if I wanted to write in there. I've got several of those type of things here within the embellishment pack. I mean, she's so happy that she's in the room, but I would say that I was not necessarily that. I mean, you could say in here, she's living her best life right before she gets booted right from the room. So there's lots of things that I can work with here in the embellishments, lots of little things that I can do. So I will be able to pick an embellishment out of there to add some details. But I will get that all done off camera and I will have the final image to show you guys later. So let me go ahead, just kind of to wrap things up a little bit. Thanks so much for joining me. Like I said, I'll finish the little details. Those sometimes do take me a little bit. I'm not shy about that. I am terrible sometimes about envisioning how to add some of those embellishment details until I actually get going and putting things together. So that is something that I'm going to have to work on off camera, so I don't take up all your time to do that. So, Maureen, thank you so much. The colors, I will tell you guys that the one thing that's great about using the Creative Memories collections is they put all these colors together for me, right? I didn't have to pick and choose these colors. I just use what was in the collection itself. So that's when it's really nice when you are working with the paper packs. Their designers have done the hard work of mixing and matching colors to make it work. Of course, you can customize this. If you need to do something that's specific to a color scheme that you have, you can mix and match all you want. All right. So Jenny's saying that she likes that how I move everything around, that she feels better because she does the same thing. Yeah, I have to move things a lot. And I'm not going to be shy to say either that sometimes I'll start a layout and I will have to walk away from it. I will put it to the side and be like, I can't deal with you right now. There's just something not working. And then I come back to it a little bit later and say, okay, I see what I need to adjust here and to get going. So the nice part about sketches is they can have a chance to get you going, but you know, especially if you're working on something like the Creative Memories, a virtual crop, where there's a little bit of a competition about what you're creating, is, you know, if you start a sketch and it starts to go in a different direction than what the final, you know, what the sketch looks like, that's okay too. Creative Memories is pretty liberal with, they want to see some inspiration there, but I mean, you may start off in one direction and realize that, oh, you know, your photos are taking you in a slightly different path. And the photos get to dictate really what your final layout's going to look like, because they need to be the star of the show, right? So don't be afraid. There may be at times where you need to not include every part of the sketch, that there may be things that just don't work for you, or it starts to get overwhelming for your photos. A lot of the blog projects that we share, that Creative Memories shares, they want to highlight how pretty the collection is, all the different papers, the embellishments, and that sometimes can get a little overwhelming for your photos. So don't be afraid to dial it back. You don't need to include all the embellishments and all the different patterns of paper. You can pick and choose. You can make it as simple or as complex. Maybe you want to use all of this pretty embellishments. So take what you need, discard what you don't, and a page done is a page done. So thanks so much for joining me today. Like I said, this Friday is going to be the virtual crop. We're going to open the secret box. Super excited to see what projects are going to have to show us with the box contents. And of course, the 4 sketches will be great to see. All right, that's all I've got for you guys. I will see you next week. I will not be doing a Scrapbook Live the week of Thanksgiving, but next week there will be a Scrapbook Live. So we definitely will see you guys next week. I hope everybody has a fantastic week, has a chance to get some scrapbooking done, and we will see you all again soon. Thanks for watching.